great. All right. Well, hey, thank you to everybody that's out there that I can't see. My name is Kevin Bailey. I am a burn surgeon at Wake Forest, and I get the honor of just kind of giving a little bit of an intro here, but I think that the real point of interest here is going to be our panelists. We've got a great group of folks. What we're hopefully going to address in terms of general topics is, the kind of the pearls and pitfalls of trying to get into a fellowship, and then hopefully there's going to be time also the pearls and pitfalls of, gosh, finding the right practice in burns and kind of finding the right space that you want to live in to hopefully start off a really rewarding career in burns. So before I do that, a couple of housekeeping items. We'll go through a set of slides here in just a second, but I wanted to let the group know we really welcome your questions, and you can put them in as they come up. If possible, we ask that you put those questions into the group so as a for everyone to see, because a lot of times, even if other people don't have your same question, it may think them or spur them to think about another question. So we certainly invite you to do that if you would. As you may or may not know, the Fellowship and Training Program is a joint effort trying to give back to membership from the ABA, and it is sponsored by Integra Life Sciences. So we certainly thank them for donating to this program. And if you would, I'd just like to highlight some of the benefits of being a Fellowship and Training and what that program has to offer. So next slide, please. There's 5 main program benefits. It certainly helps to hopefully advance your career. Certainly you get increased opportunities to network and a chance to kind of have your voice heard. So these are things that we all, kind of want to be part of a group where we're heard, and that certainly happens here. We also offer updates. And then finally, at a practical level, this program helps to save you money. Next slide, please. So in terms of advancing your career, there's certainly chances to increase your knowledge, but not only increase your knowledge with programs that are offered, but you get credit for that learning with CMEs that are offered, as well as opportunities for kind of deep dives and more granular discussions on topics, such as, for example, learning some of the different techniques for covering larger burns. Next slide, please. Secondly, there's an opportunity to network and connect. I would highlight for you that, one of the benefits is if you can get in on the member side, you can easily find colleagues. So for those of you who may have heard of people but don't know their email address, rather than trying to sleuth through the internet and track them down, there is a membership directory which really facilitates being able to connect with folks. Next slide, please. And I said you could make your voice heard, not only through being invited to participate in advocacy efforts, kind of at the grassroots level, but you'll be eligible to vote for ABA elections, the full slate of ballots, and that gives you a chance to weigh in on policies as they are starting kind of at their genesis, rather than reading about it in the New York Times, so to speak. So next slide, please. We also hopefully help keep you up to date with specialty publications such as the Coding Reimbursement Primer. You'll be able to receive action alerts and the newsletters, and then hopefully download some of those professional tools such as our clinical practice guidelines, disaster resources, and some of the other basic information like referral criteria. Next slide, please. Now, as I said, the final point is at a practical grassroots level, you're going to be able to save some money. If you enroll in this program, you can get a complimentary ABA membership. You get complimentary annual meeting registration, which for your program directors, that's a good piece of money. So that would certainly aid in getting you further into their good graces. And then you also save money on publications and other courses that are offered. Next slide, please. And so if you're interested in this program, again, there is an application process. If you go to ameriburn.org / Fellowship in Training Program, or FIT, you can download the application there and then turn it in. You will need a signature from your fellowship program director, but again, it's such a great value. I don't think you're going to have any trouble doing that. And then next slide, I think this is our last one. Just reminders that we will have follow-up meetings such as this. You'll hear about the traveling fellowship program, which is now going to be able to take off as COVID kind of eases into our rearview mirror. And then also talk about training at the annual meeting in May in Dallas. So we hope to see you there. And I don't know if we had it on the final slide, but again, one last shout out to Integra Life Sciences. There we go, because it's a part of their generosity that made this happen. So with that, then we'll switch back over and hopefully we'll get all of our panelists up on your screen. So we have a distinguished group of folks, and I don't have them all here, but we have Dr. Clark from Parkland, Dr. Gillenwater from Los Angeles, Dr. Kapari, who's down in Louisiana, and then Dr. Jane. Dr. Jane's in Arizona, sorry. So I'm going to let them go through and introduce themselves. And then hopefully, if all goes as we expect, I'll ask one question of one person, and then hopefully those of you in the audience will be able to help us kind of take it from there. So with that, I will bow back. And I see Dr. Clark at the top of my screen. I don't know if that's what you all see. So I was thinking Dr. Clark, Dr. Gillenwater, Dr. Kapari, and then Dr. Jane, just because that's what's on my screen. So we'll kind of go from there.
All right. Hi, I'm Audra Clark. I'm currently at UT Southwestern in Parkland. I did all of my training here, including medical school, 7 years of general surgery residency, and the 1-year surgical critical care burn fellowship here at Parkland and UT Southwestern. And I'm now just entering my 2nd year of attending Hood. So hopefully I can answer any questions about the fellowship process and being a recent grad.
I'm Justin Gillenwater. I'm the medical director of the burn unit at LAC USC. I'm a plastic surgeon by training. Kind of similar to Audra, I did all of my residency training and burn fellowship at USC, which was 6 years of plastic surgery residency. I did 2 years of global health fellowship and then 1 year of burn and critical care fellowship, all at USC. I think I've been on staff now for 6 or 7 years. I'm the fellowship director as well as the medical director of the burn unit. And that's a little bit about me.
Hi.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I guess I'll go. My name is Arpana Jain. I am in Arizona Burn Center. I'm also the fellowship director here, so I could give you some insight, hopefully, what fellowship directors are looking for the burn fellowship. I did my burn training at Shriners, California, and UC Davis, and then I came through the general surgery route.
I'm Nicole Kapari. I'm originally from Minnesota. I did my medical school in Minnesota, and I did residency at Michigan State. I then went to Harborview in Seattle for my burn fellowship, and then I followed that up with a trauma critical care fellowship in Houston, Texas. I am currently the PEDS medical director at a children's hospital in Louisiana. I have been medical director and associate medical director in Minnesota and also in California prior to taking this position.
All right, very cool. Thanks very much. So I'm going to parenthetically say, I hope the audience realizes that this is fairly informal. If you can't tell by the way we dress, hopefully you can tell by the way we're sharing. And if I'm going to apologize in advance if I kind of go between informal and formal speech. If I address some of the panelists by first name, I hope that all will extend me a degree of grace and just hopefully that gets you a sense of how the community works, because I think that we're all comfortable with that, but I certainly don't want anyone in the audience to mistake that for any type of lack of respect. So with that, Dr. Kapari, since you were last to talk, I'm going to let you go first. So if you could, what's kind of one thing you wish you would have known about the process of how do you pick a fellowship?
Oh, loaded question. I wish somebody would have told me that after college, there was medical school, and then there was this thing called residency. And then when you finish residency, there's still this thing called fellowship. I didn't know really anything about the entire process, and every stage was kind of eye-opening for me. I was lucky enough to know that I wanted to do burns and critical care trauma, I should say, too, when I first started my residency program. And that was just because I fell in love with burn rotation when I was a medical student. So I kind of geared my residency toward those kind of careers. And I applied for the critical care match. through the ACGME, and because I didn't know that a lot of burn fellowships exist outside of the ACGME at that time. And so I applied for critical care positions at level 1 trauma centers that had burn fellowships associated with them. When I then did my interviews, I found out that every single one of those fellowships said, oh no, we have a separate burn fellowship and you would not be doing burns as part of your critical care fellowship. So that was really eye-opening, and I wish I would have known that was a different opportunity. I think now there are ACGME burn fellowships that you can find either on the website or by word of mouth, and I think that that's really important that we get that out there for people just as resources.
Very cool. Hey, Justin, you're, I think on the panel, you kind of stand out a bit in terms of having a plastics background. Any pearls that you'd offer that you wish you would have known in the process, or looking back in the rearview mirror, you may have wished you could have done differently in terms of the fellowship application process?
Yes, so I'm kind of a dirty plastic surgeon, I love burns, wounds, scars, hidradenitis, pressure ulcers, neck fascia. You give it to me, I'll take it. I love it. But I wasn't always this way. When I was going through residency, I took 2 years off to do a global health fellowship. I lived in India for a couple of years and worked with Operation Smile, and got really pretty comfortable with cleft care and cleft delivery, and thought I was going to be a craniofacial surgeon. As part of our plastic surgery residency training, we rotate through the burn unit as PGY5 chief residents, and spend 3 months there, where we're getting a lot of exposure to critical care and other things. And I just fell in love with burn care at that point. I had rotated through the burn unit previously as a PGY1 and PGY2, and critical care terrified me. And so I never wanted to do burns again after my second year, and then came back as a PGY5 and thought that, found it incredibly rewarding. And a lot of the things that I like in life, team sports, long-term relationships, getting to really take care of patients from, day one to whenever they're done with me. All of that kind of was part of what I found in burn care, and something that kind of inspired me to go into the field. In terms of things I wish I like I said, I kind of backed into this late. It wasn't something that I had been inspired to do very early on. And I don't think there are a lot of plastic surgeons that engage in this space. But I love it. And I think that it can be a very rewarding career choice for plastic surgeons, because, a lot of some of the most fun I have is in doing the reconstructions over the longer term, and not just healing people's wounds acutely, but really managing their scars and reconstruction for, years afterwards. And there are patients that I've taken care of even as a fellow at USC that I'm still managing now, doing reconstructions, 7 years later. And I just find that longer term care really rewarding. In terms of plastic surgeons looking to go into burn care, I think it's important to find fellowships that are critical care heavy. I think as plastic surgeons, we are somewhat familiar with soft tissue management techniques, but I think that we're lacking in critical care just due to our normal residency curriculum. So I think that's pretty important for plastic surgeons to look into as if they're interested in burn care. I'm going to stop there. I'm filibustering.
No, it's all good. I'm going to pivot to Dr. Jane. I'm going to have her up next, because I see we had a question from the audience. I don't know, Dr. Jane, if you're able to see that or not. The question is, I want to know which fellowships don't require previous ACGME training if I already have all my USLME steps, including step 3. This is someone who has basically gained their medical licensure from outside the US. So I don't know if you have any insight into that, but I was going to hopefully help you segue in a little bit, Dr. Jane, because I know you've got a lot of insight into the fellowship process as a program director. So my question is, for the folks in the audience, to you, are you able to kind of categorize the fellowships? You know, if there's 100 fellowships, do they fall into different buckets? Those that help with burn and critical care, those help with burn and plastics. Are there any that you are aware of that kind of do all three? Or do you have any, how would you sort through, or how would you recommend to somebody to start kind of creating in their mind a tiered level of what they might apply for? And then maybe at the end of that, if you want to try to answer the question from the audience.
Yeah, thank you for giving me opportunity.
Big question. I'm sorry.
No. So if I may address the question from the audience, and so I actually happen to also train outside the United States, and I will tell first thing is there is no way my knowledge is comprehensive about the application process. So I will only answer based on my knowledge, and I would say anybody who's really making life decisions, going forward should get as much information as you are able to gather, including this webinar and other ways, and engaging with ABA and as much people you can meet. So having said that, from what my experience and understanding is, the clinical fellowship, not the research fellowships, but the clinical burn fellowships will require the resident or the fellow, depending on which PGY level they are, postgraduate level they are, to be able to get licensure as a trainee in that state. And to be able to get licensed, I think you have to have some ACGME. You have to have some ACGME training. You have to at least do PGY 1 or 2 or some level of training to be able to get that licensure as a trainee. So various programs have different models. I could definitely tell you about ours. We match fellows who have completed 5 years of general surgery training. There are programs which will match fellows who or have fellows who have done 2 years of general surgery training, and they will take a break, do their fellowship, and go back to their parent institution, finish their general surgery training. I'm sure there are, I don't know exact names, but I've met residents who have took a break during their plastic surgery training at some point, and then did 1 year of burn fellowship. So those are the different ways, but I think to be able to enter a clinical fellowship and not be able to get licensure, that I'm not aware of any program that is able to achieve that just because of the rules of the state. So that's hopefully answer your question, and I would say keep researching on it. And the other part is Kevin, could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. That's my bad. I'm sorry. I gave you a lot there. So if I was going to be applying for a fellowship today, do you have a sense of, at least from your perspective, what kinds of fellowships are there, just in broad strokes or buckets, if you will? Because to my mind, again, I'm not so close to it. There's kind of those that, you've got a burn fellowship, mainly clinical, but you won't be able to sit for your critical care boards. There's some that offer you can sit for it. And I don't know if that's still, a valid way to kind of break it down if I was going to sort through it. Yeah.
Well, if I may become a little philosophical, answer this question is, I think people who are really find their passion in burn care, and you have to be passionate to be able to take care of burn patient, because it is not just physically exhausting, it could be emotionally exhausting, but on the other end, it's extremely rewarding. So if you are passionate, that's the only way you will get through this lifestyle. It is a lifestyle, and I'm very happy to be in it. Is what your strengths are, and that will come from your whichever program you went into residency with. So every program is heavy on certain things, and you know what they are. Some programs are really heavy on critical care, and you go through your ICU every single year for God knows so many rotations. So you feel very, very comfortable with that. So maybe you were lacking in your plastics rotation, so you want to really go into a program where you get more of that exposure. So in terms of comprehensive listing, so there is a good listing of fellowship programs on American Burn Association's website. The link is on the chat there. It is going to get more updated. It's a transitory thing. More fellowships come. Some people add more fellows to their program, and so on and so forth. There's another badge of honor of getting a verified fellowship. So they're verified burn center now. They're verified fellowship programs that are verified through the ABA. You want to look into that. But you really want to go meet with people, meet with the current fellow and find out what exactly they do, and does that fill the gaps that you have from your training so far. Then ultimately, that way you can find the best fit.
Cool. Thank you so much. So Dr. Clark, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. I'm going to see if we can tease a few more questions out of the audience. So let's talk about getting a burn job. How did you find your job, your first job, and was that tough? Did you have to beat a lot of bushes to get hired?
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
I may be a little bit of the exception to the rule. Luckily I fell in love with burn surgery pretty early on as a fourth year med student on my sub-I here at Parkland, and then continued to love my rotations. And at UT Southwestern and Parkland, we get a lot of burn exposure. So I did a month rotation as an intern, a second year, and then I did some lab time doing burn work, knowing that that's what I wanted to do. And then probably did about 3 months in my fourth and fifth year of burn surgery. And during that time, expressed interest in doing the fellowship here. And similarly to Nicole, I actually, wanting to broaden my horizons and look around, I started interviewing for other fellowships, not really knowing that there were so many burn fellowships outside of the match. I thought that because the way that our fellowship is here is it's within the surgical critical care match. And so I'd almost missed out on some of the spots in other places. Luckily, knowing that this is what I wanted to do, I kind of was coming in also knowing that that was where I was going to be looking for a job. So I was very lucky to just kind of have matched in a residency that was very strong in burns and has a focus on burns, and be along the way that when they had an opening for a faculty job. Some of our more recent fellows have had great success. I know burn surgeons are in high demand all over. I know that there are a lot of variations on what hospitals are looking for, whether they need you to also be in the surgical ICU or take trauma call, et cetera. So I don't know how the job market is on, finding the exact type of practice that you want versus are you going to have to do some other things here and there and kind of be a team player. Our group here, we have actually 6 burn surgeons, but probably only about 3 FTE worth of burn surgeons. And we all kind of we choose a little bit where we mix and match. A couple of them take trauma, emergency general surgery call. I take some surgical ICU time to fit in with my primary weeks and my backup weeks as well. So again, my job looking experience was very luckily minimal on me.
Cool. I wish mine would have been that easy. So Dr. Kapar, you were going to answer. So same question for you. Like finding the first job, or if you had something to dovetail, feel free.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I just wanted to jump in a little bit on what Dr. Jan was saying about like the fellowships and things. And I think that one of the things that I noticed the most is that there are fellowships in the country that you can go into after you've completed your 3rd year of residency. There are fellowships that you can go into after you're board eligible. There are 1-year fellowships, there are 2-year fellowships, there are acute care fellowships that are 2 years that are heavy on burns. So there's a lot of different paths to get you your burn experience. There are no boards for burn surgery. So what you need is that critical care boards if you're going to be a burn intensivist per se. But otherwise, you can really find fellowships that have burn rotations and burn centers with them. And a lot of these programs will work with you where maybe you do a 2-year critical care, but you spend 9 months in the burn unit or something like that. And so I just wanted to kind of bring up that it really, really is program specific, and you can find a program that fits for what you desire. The ABI just counted that there's 21 programs listed, and every single one of them is different. There, some of them 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, you can do a lot. There's some residents that come out of training and that they need the 2 years of an acute care surgery fellowship because they want to do acute care and trauma, but then they also want a burn fellowship. Then I wouldn't suggest that you do another year of fellowship. I would probably find an acute care fellowship that incorporates your burn training within it. So, there's just lots of different ways. And I didn't mean to, sorry, I kind of jumped in on that, but I was just saying that there are a ton of different ways to get to burns.
Perfect. Yeah. No, don't worry about interruption.
And then I apologize to you. And then the other question that you kind of asked a little bit too is about like how you get your first job. You're going to find a burn center that you fall in love with. It's either the burn center where you learn to love burns. It's a burn center where you rotated on, or it's going to be a burn center that you interview with and you just get a feel of the burn career that you want. And like Audra said, I mean, there's so many opportunities to be either a burn surgeon alone, you can be burns trauma, you can be acute care surgeons, you can be a general surgeon who covers burn call. It really, you find the job that fits what your career goals are and what you want to do. I was one of those people who I really only wanted to do burns, and I didn't think that was going to be a possibility. But as I went through my training, I fell in love with trauma and critical care. So I've done kind of all of them. Currently, I'm only doing burns. But in my previous jobs, I've been trauma ICU, surgical ICU, trauma call. I hate EGS with a passion. So I've always been lucky to stay away from that. So
I think we're being recorded.
Yeah, I know, but I do, and everybody knows it. I'm not a laparoscopic. Take out anybody's gallbladder or appendix again unless it's been has a gunshot wound through it. So,
fair enough. So I see. Maybe we'll do a quick rapid fire. I see there's a question from the audience about what the typical burn call schedule is like. Ready, go.
I can start at Kirkland. We have, again, 6 of us, but about 3 kind of FTEs. We go Friday to Friday. The weekend, we come in, round, you're on call 24/7 for any big burns coming in, issues, etc. We have a dedicated OR Monday through Friday. We usually do 3 to 4 cases a day, depending on how big they are. And again, we're kind of on call. We do that probably depending on how clinical we are, 1 to 2 of those weeks a month, and then a backup week where you're doing some of our outpatient clinic and some of our outpatient recon cases 1 to 2 days that week. And then we have some administrative weeks, and like I said, some of us flex into some of the other sicky schedules, trauma schedules. We have a plastic surgeon who has kind of his own private plastics as well. And that sounds like it is a really intense week. Here we have quite a bit of resident and APP support to buffer that, so you're not living in the hospital for that 7 days.
I could go next. Yeah, I think what Nicole said, the call and the structure and everything really depends on where you are. So here we are 5 full-time burn surgeon. None of us do any trauma or anything else but just burn. So you divide the year into 5, and that's what it is. Same for weekends, same for weeks. We have 2 ORs that run all day long just for burns, and clinic 5 days a week. So we just I just can tell you, I don't make the schedule, and I am very grateful for that. But this is, so we just have the workload, and you just divvy up. It's really, as I said, I will go back to my previous comment, as a lifestyle. You really, you don't come here to work. It's part of you, and so you just take all your partners like that. All that, it's a extremely team intensive specialty. You will never take credit for doing something that you did it, because you did not, because the team did it really. Otherwise, you can do the best thing within the confines of the operating room, and as soon as they go out, the dressing falls out, and here you go. So you have you have that both humbling feeling as well as the part of being grateful with the team. So you just divide the work among yourself. So that's a little bit about the lifestyle.
I'll chime in here, and I guess what I will say is I'll just describe my job and kind of what I do on the day-to-day as well as kind of week to week. So there are 3 attending plastic surgeons, all critical care certified, that staff our unit. We split the call 2 to 2 to 1. So I'm on call essentially 12 days a month. We don't split that up by weeks, but we, just kind of one of our staff will take 5 to 7 days at a time, and then the other of us kind of split days. I have a plastic surgery practice in addition to the burn practice, which is mostly burn recon, scars, and general wounds and general plastic surgery. When I'm on call in the burn unit, I cover critical care, I cover cases. I also staff plastic surgery cases at the county hospital. And in addition, I do administrative duties as the medical director of the burn unit. Audra, I wish I had weeks of administrative time. I don't have, I have like, very little dedicated administrative time, and need to kind of roll it into a relatively busy clinical practice, both in the burn unit and outside that. We pass patients back and forth. So for example, I'll be on call Friday through Tuesday. My colleague covers Wednesday and Thursday. I'm back on call Friday through Sunday. Another colleague is covering Monday through Thursday. Their patients are not my patients. They're the team's patients. And we sign out to each other. We pass the cases back and forth. We let each other know and the team know what our plans are. And so there's some amount of high-level communication that needs to occur between our and our faculty and within the team. As you all said, I have a lot of resident, fellow, APP support as well. We have 2 NPs in the burn unit, 1 burn fellow, 1 chief plastic surgery resident, multiple junior residents, interns, etc. So between the whole team, there is continuity of care, as most of the team stays constant, and sometimes our attending level coverage changes. I apologize for the dog barking in the background. There must be a squirrel nearby. So, that's kind of how we split call what my job obligations are. I think it's different everywhere. I can see benefits to taking a month straight and then having a month of laser plastic surgery practice. But in terms of the way we do things, I think it's just, it fits our lives and our schedules best. And I think we've got a pretty good system there.
And I would just chime in a little bit too. Again, this is so individualized. It depends on where you go. I worked in different places where we were a month on, month off, a week on, a week off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, on all the time. I think there is a little bit of variability in the surgeon too. I think a lot of times sometimes I feel like I'm the martyr. I fall on the sword. Like, I want to be on call all the time because I don't want to ask my trauma partners to cover. So there are some programs where the trauma surgeons cover at night so the burn surgeon can get some rest. So it really, really, really truly depends on your program. Like Justin was kind of alluding to, there is programs where you keep your own patient. So if you're on call, you keep that patient, and maybe you're on call Q2 or Q3. Or you can go in kind of like the service model where you're on for a time and then hand everybody off. And it really just depends. I have interviewed at both types of places. I am the type of surgeon who I like the team approach, where this is our team's patient, and I like block of time on, so I can have a block of time off. And when we talk about that time off, sometimes that looks like a surgical ICU week or a critical care week or administrative week, or maybe you're just on vacation kind of thing. So it really just depends, and you can find a job that suits your career goals and lifestyle balance.
Cool. And then Audrey, did you get a chance to tell us about your call schedule? You did. Okay, very good. So we got two questions from the audience, and I will defer to the panel as to who wants to answer. The first is kind of a philosophical question. What are the benefits and drawbacks of going through general surgery route compared to plastic surgery route for burns? Compare and contrast in 51 words or less.
As a plastic surgeon, I think I talked about this earlier. The critical care part of plastic surgery training is not as robust as I would expect it to be in a general surgery program. So I looked for a fellowship and happened to be in my own residency program that was critical care heavy and had a critical care CAQ. So I'm board certified in surgical critical care as well as plastic surgery. That was important to me. Acute management of burn wounds and burn reconstruction was less important to me, although I think those are obviously additional strengths of our fellowship and very important in burn care. I think as a plastic surgeon coming into burn care, I have more of a focus on longer term outcomes vis-a-vis acute burn wound management, and am able to have a longer term relationship with patients and discuss scars, scar management, possible reconstruction earlier on in the hospital, earlier on in their burn course than maybe some of my general surgery colleagues. I also, I don't cover any trauma call or anything like that. I'm not part of the acute care surgery program. And so I think that separates me a little bit in the idea that I am not, that's just, I don't cover the SICU or anything like that either. So I think that's a little bit different. But for plastic surgeons interested in burn care, I think finding a program, depending on what your experience was during residency, because you may have zero burn experience, although the RRC still requires 1 month of burn care for plastic surgery residency. So you may have very little burn experience as a plastic surgery resident, which I would say is probably one of the reasons there are not too many plastic surgeons interested in burns, but looking for a program that is focused on critical care would be something I would encourage plastic surgeons going into the field to look at.
Are there any contrasting views from any of the panelists?
I don't think.
I'm going to say that being said, we train both plastic surgeons and general surgeons at our residency program regardless. And I think that there are reasons why we select to do both plastics and general surgeons. Sorry for that jump in.
No, it's fine. I would say just from a general surgery standpoint, there are some of us who like to do some of the other things. Like I've certainly operated on the perf gastric ulcer on my burn patient, so there are things that from a general surgery standpoint, I really appreciate doing. My love kind of is in the cosmetic outcome of our burn patients. So somebody could have easily persuaded me to go through plastics. Because I like the long-term look. I like when you're looking at the burn initially and you're thinking of what can be done long-term cosmetically in the recon, where I think that's where the plastic surgeons bring that approach to the burn, where the general surgery burn patients are maybe more upfront acute. Let's get this patient to survive and then we'll deal with the recon later, where maybe, so there's a little bit of difference, I think, in the way we take care of patients. But I think I did like the general surgery of like the trauma opportunity, a little bit more of the critical care training. But I think both options really are beneficial to the patient. And I think a lot of our burn centers If you don't have plastic surgery trained burn surgeons, we definitely feel that. And because we're always referring out to our plastics colleagues for some of our big flaps in reconstruction things. And when they don't know anything about burns, it can be very frustrating. So the two just kind of mirror each other really well.
I got to give Nicole props. She was the only general surgeon that presented a case at the ABA Recon SIG, which was awesome. And I think in terms of who burn recon and plastic surgeons doing burn recon, it's really nice for me in my job to be the person doing the recon, knowing the patient, knowing their acute management, and then understanding who this person is that I'm working on for reconstruction, as opposed to being a plastic surgeon focusing on burn reconstruction, but not having a handle on their acute wound management. And sometimes I get those patients for recon that have been managed elsewhere. But I really, it's a much better and more rewarding relationship to take care of the patients that I've managed in the burn unit with the team and manage those patients over a longer term.
All right, very cool. So I saw there's another question. So certainly, if Audra or Arpana, if you have any comments, you want to feel free. But I also want to put out, because I think we're going to have to start thinking about some time management here. There's another question from the audience. It's got several parts, looking at how does the application process work? How does the match project work with some going through formal match? I don't know if you can see that, but I don't know if one of the two of you want to try to address that as well.
Sure, I can kind of address it from my experience more so than having a really firm knowledge of it. Like I said, I was a little in the dark about how it all worked, kind of knowing that I wanted to stay at my home program. But when I started looking around, there are many other programs that are outside of the match that you do you look on the ABA website, you contact the programs, and they will kind of figure out a way for you to interview for those positions. That is an earlier process than the match. And so the kind of wild, wild west environment that this creates is, if there is a program that you're interested in that is within the surgical critical care match, it may put you in the position of having to turn down offers or from other programs without being 100% sure if you're going to match in the program that you want. So when I was looking around, I got a couple other offers, but knowing that I wanted to be at UT Southwestern Parkland and theirs is within the surgical critical care match, I had to kind of put all my eggs in one basket and be confident that they would match me. And so it can make it really difficult. And I would echo what other people have said of doing as much research as you can, talking to as many people as you can to find the program that is going to fit you the best. Do you feel weak in critical care and you want more critical care time? Do you want a program where you have a really long burn time? Coming from residency here, I had done quite a bit of critical care, quite a bit of burns. So this program fit me really well in that I could do kind of 6 months of my ICU critical care time and 6 months of burns, having felt like I had gotten a lot of both of that in my program. But for someone who maybe has not had burn experience, you may want one of the places that does a year of burns and then a year of critical care. So again, there's so many different iterations of what the fellowships look like, and there is no specific timeline. They do not share a deadline. They just kind of have the programs that are outside of the match have rolling interviews and offer positions on kind of a rolling basis, to my knowledge. And hopefully Dr. Jane can give a little bit more of the official information.
I know that was really spot on. Not to forget that the rolling application, some programs, depending on their evolution within the fellowship, would be taking you late in the process. So it's possible that you may have an open spot in the fellowship after the match has concluded, and it is of course outside the match. So also people match sometimes and move. It's not really a match because people intend to go into burn fellowship at certain place, but then you realize for various reasons, remember, they've already gone through a full residency. And then by the time some people may have family commitment or personal challenges that requires them to not go through that. And since you didn't really match, so it's not so binding. So you may want to. So I would say stay in contact and stay in touch. And if you are in the process, I would always, and all of us are very approachable, really. And then information is all on the ABA. And I could tell you about our program here. We take 2 fellows, 2 different tracks. Both are on the match. One fellow is the burn track. The other fellow is not on the burn track. So they both get board eligible in surgical critical care, but only one person spends most of their time heavily in the burn unit. And that's what the burn fellowship is here. So you definitely want to know exactly what it's going to look like at the end of the line for you. Are you going to become board eligible for critical care or not? Or really within the year, how's the rotation makeup is. Another thing we have not brought up, and I would want to, if you want to know about pediatric exposure, a lot of burn surgeons would do both pediatric and adults. You want to know what your pediatric exposure is, pediatric critical care exposure, pediatric recon exposure. You want to know all that. And then sometimes some fellowship will allow you to, go do, we work with faculty who is not core burn faculty, and you can get exposure from them. And so you want to know all that in that interview process. And I would not feel intimidated whatsoever. I would just ask the question. I haven't met a burn surgeon yet who is not very excited about talking about burn care. They all are. So yeah, they'll be excited to answer your questions.
I'm going to say the other thing too, just reach out to any of us too. All of us have trained residents who want burns, and we call the burn programs that they're interested in, or we call, it's such a close knit group that we really all know who, what positions are open, what jobs are open, and what residencies match in places. So, use us as resources. If you're really interested in going to Iowa, I can call Dr. Wiedenmeyer and say, hey, I've got a resident who's really interested in coming to your program in Iowa, right? We do that for a lot of people. So reach out to us, use us, and we can help you kind of guide you in that process and help you find programs that fit to what you're looking for.
Oh, that's great. So for the audience, just so you know, unfortunately, there's a hard stop that comes at the top of the hour because this channel is used for other ABA functions, and so the plan was for it to be about an hour. I think we've had a really good discussion. I think what I'm hearing, and perhaps the audience has appreciated that, this is a group of folks in front of you that were not only highly skilled, not only highly intelligent, highly motivated, but I think the common story that we might hear in all of them is that they kind of started with the end in mind. They caught the bug of burn care at some point during their residency, and then they started kind of envisioning what they wanted their career to look like. And it took them in slightly different directions. But the thing they have in common is they had to kind of compose a program for themselves. That's one of the cool things about burn care is there's lots of opportunities to do that for yourself, perhaps in a way that is truly unique. The other thing that I think I heard from all the panelists is, going back to the question about plastics versus burn track or general surgery tracks, is no matter what, there's a lot of overlap of skill sets, and there's a lot of tension right now out there trying to subspecialize so that you have pediatric intensivists, you've got adult intensivists. So no matter what you do, every one of these folks is good at being a team player. You heard that coming up a lot, and being able to get along, with a lot of other specialists to kind of offer the complete package of services that burn care requires. So I think I certainly want to offer any final comments from any of the panelists. Yes, Justin, thanks for raising your hand. With that, I'm gonna kind of back off at this point. I'm gonna ask Fatima or one of the ABA hosts, once the panelists kind of conclude, to just kind of quietly sign us off, unless there's any other questions from the crowd. Thank you all so much for coming today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so
One
much.
of the things I think you touched on there is jobs and longer term career paths. And I think that you can kind of craft the job that you want in burns, and whether you want to be full-time dialed in on burns, which I love, whether you want to do a week of burns, a week of trauma, however you want to craft your job. I think that in your career, for what you find rewarding, it's out there. And absolutely the need for burn surgeons is there too, meaning that there are a lot of job openings, availability all around the country, depending on where you want to live and what kind of practice you want to have. I think there are opportunities everywhere. And that's a great reason to go into this as a field, not just because we've kind of been we've been saying repeatedly, we all love it. We all know that. And I completely agree. You have to be passionate about it. But if you're looking a little pragmatically about it, there are jobs, they're out there. I think that it's a great tight-knit community among burn surgeons. We starting to know each other all around the country. And I think having that collegiality and in addition to the job availability is really important when you're looking at a longer term career, especially as especially a career that is malleable to what it is that you want to do, not just putting a square peg in a round hole. Anybody else have thoughts about that?
Thumbs up. That's probably a great point for us to end on then. Again, we all greatly appreciate you all the panelists. We appreciate having you guys here, taking time out of your busy days to hopefully offer some insight to the audience. And we thank the audience for attending. Hopefully you'll be able to take advantage of the Fellowship and Training Program. It's a very simple application. And again, thanks to our sponsor, Integra Life Sciences, for putting together the funding for this program. Thanks so much to all.
Thanks everyone for having me. All our emails are on the chat. If anybody wants to email any of us, I'm sure, or group email us, I'm sure we'd be welcome to.
And before other people sign off too, one of the things that Justin said, we're trying to grow burns as a career for more people. So medical students burn interest groups are awesome. Reaching out to any of us if you want to do an elective rotation on our burn service, just to get more visibility for burns, because it's not a required rotation. And so if there's opportunities like that, please reach out to us, come spend a week or a month or with us, or a couple days if you have an opportunity. It to really just kind of show you what our jobs and our careers look like. We're all happy to do that. Okay.
Thank you so much.